After you set up your data story project, it's time to get to work. As you saw in our lecture on the data storytelling process, before you can analyze your data, you need to source it. In this lecture, we'll walk you through various concepts and methods that are central to sourcing your data. We'll also walk you through different ways to source your data so you can more quickly get to analyzing your data and creating your next best data story for your audience. By the end of this lecture, you'll understand what structured and unstructured data is, what primary and secondary data sources are, and the different ways to source your data. So, if you're ready, let's get moving.
A key ingredient in your data story is, arguably, the data. However, where do you get your data? Do you need to pay for it, or can you get it for free? How do you source your data? Is it a manual download, or will you require some programming knowledge? And what do you do after you download your data? The questions can seem endless. After you spend some time thinking through your data story, you'll want data to analyze. Now, you may know exactly where you're going to source your data, which is awesome. However, with many projects, your topic may vary, so you may need to explore different sources of data to see which one has the best use and can give you your best story, which means repeating the process of sourcing and exploring before you get to a more in-depth analysis. The reality is that managing the data within your project requires specific skills. For example, you may need a web programmer to write a web scraper or build a data ingestion script in Python. And then the data needs to be cleaned, transformed, and normalized so you can analyze the data. This can be time-consuming. However, after you get your data into a format and structure that can be analyzed, the process tends to speed up. Also, like anything, the more you do it, the better you'll become. Structured data is information organized in a predefined format, making it easy to store, search, and analyze using traditional database management systems. Think rows and columns. For example, if you've ever used a spreadsheet, then you're already familiar with structured data. The key characteristics of structured data include: structured data is typically organized into rows and columns, similar to a spreadsheet or database table. Data elements within structured datasets have consistent formats, data types, and relationships, making them suitable for relational databases. Structured data is easily accessible, manipulable, and queryable using standard SQL, structured query language, or other database query languages. Unstructured data, on the other hand, is information that lacks a predefined format or organization, making it more challenging to store, search, and analyze using traditional database systems. Social media posts or comments are examples of unstructured data. The key characteristics of unstructured data include: unstructured data does not conform to a rigid schema or format, and it can include text, multimedia, and other content in varying structures. Unstructured data comes in diverse formats, such as text documents, images, videos, audio files, social media posts, emails, PDFs, web pages, and more. Unstructured data often contains complex and rich content, including natural language text, multimedia elements, metadata, and contextual information. Data sources can be broken down into primary and secondary data sources. A primary data source refers to the original source of data that's collected firsthand by researchers, organizations, or individuals for a specific purpose or research project. In other words, primary data is data that is directly observed, measured, or collected from its original source without relying on pre-existing data or secondary sources. Primary data sources are often used in research, surveys, experiments, and studies to gather new information and insights. A secondary data source refers to existing data that has been collected, processed, and published by other sources. Unlike primary data, which is collected firsthand for a specific research project or purpose, secondary data is already available and accessible for use by researchers, analysts, and organizations. Secondary data sources can provide valuable information and insights, serving as a foundation for research, benchmarking, trend analysis, and comparison studies. The following represent examples of primary data sources. Government databases. Government agencies often provide a wealth of data on various topics, such as demographics, public health, crime statistics, and economic indicators. Websites like data.gov for the United States or Eurostat for the European Union are excellent starting points for accessing public datasets. Open data portals. Many organizations, including nonprofits and research institutions, maintain open data portals where they share datasets related to their areas of focus. Examples include the World Bank's Open Data Initiative and the Open Data Network. Surveys and interviews. Conducting surveys and interviews can provide first-hand data from sources such as experts, stakeholders, or the general public. Tools like Google Forms, SurveyMonkey, and Zoom are commonly used for data collection in journalism. Freedom of Information Requests, FOIAs. In countries with freedom of information laws, journalists can submit FOIA requests to government agencies for access to specific documents or datasets that are not publicly available. The following are examples of secondary data sources. Data aggregators. Platforms like Kaggle, Data.World, and Statista aggregate datasets from various sources, making them easily accessible for analysis and visualization. These platforms often host competitions and challenges that can inspire story ideas. Note, in some cases, there is a fee to access the data sources across these platforms. Social media monitoring tools. Tools like Hootsuite, Brandwatch, and Mention can help track social media trends, sentiment analysis, and public reactions to events or topics. Social media platforms themselves, such as Twitter and Facebook, also provide APIs for accessing public data. Web scraping. While it requires technical skills, web scraping can extract data from websites for analysis. Tools like Beautiful Soup for Python or Import.io offer solutions for scraping structured data from web pages. Commercial databases. Companies like Nielsen, Bloomberg, and Reuters offer access to proprietary datasets on topics such as market research, financial data, and industry trends. These databases often require subscriptions or licenses. Downloading data is relatively straightforward. You find the data you're looking for, and then you download it. However, you'll likely need to do some data cleaning and transformation on that data. So don't think that just because the process of getting the data is straightforward that you're done. Web scraping involves extracting data from websites automatically using software tools or programming scripts. It's useful for collecting data from multiple sources or tracking changes over time. However, ethical considerations and legal issues such as terms of service violations should be considered when scraping data. Many websites and online platforms offer APIs that allow developers to access and retrieve data programmatically. This data can range from weather forecasts, stock prices, and news articles to public transportation schedules and geographic information. Conducting surveys and interviews is a primary method of gathering qualitative and quantitative data directly from individuals or groups. Surveys can be conducted in person, via phone, email, or online platforms like Google Forms or SurveyMonkey. Interviews can be structured, semi-structured, or unstructured, depending on the research goals.
Hopefully, this lecture got you started in understanding some of the concepts and practices around data sourcing for your data stories. In our next lecture, we'll get more hands-on keyboard and start you down the process of finding and analyzing data.